Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk, episode 496. It is the end of June 2024, and this week we're going to have a question of the week, which I don't even know what it is. It's a mystery question to me that Tracy has for us. Talk about building a casita, or also known as an ADU, on your property in the Albuquerque area. I've got some insights on that, as well as what are the future of home prices? I think I have a crystal ball that can tell us the future of home prices. And we're going to get into the Realtor Commission Settlement Lawsuit, that whole thing, and what buyers and sellers need to know about that and how things are going to change quite a bit come August 1st. And of course, Homes of the Week. And I'm sure I've got some data that I'm going to load in there at some point as we go through this week. And it's Tego and Tracy Venturi, Venturi Realty Group, of Real Broker here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 10 years of on the radio and podcast talking about real estate in Albuquerque. Tracy, okay, do you want to go right to your question of the week, or do you want me to do something else first?
No, question of the week's great. So this week we had a question from a listener who said, "Hey, I'm really curious about Tanoan," and really what they wanted to know is the differences between Tanoan East and Tanoan West and home prices. They said, I'm wondering if Tanoan West is more affordable than Tanoan East. And so I did some research, so I've got some data on that.
Great. Data. I love data.
Yeah, I know you do. So Tanoan West is north of Academy and west of Eubank. Right? The actual Tanoan Golf Club, the main building, is in Tanoan East, which is north of Academy and east of Eubank. So Tanoan West, real quick.
And let me clarify something. Tanoan West is older than East. Is that true?
It was the first phase,
okay.
Or yes, it was.
Okay.
It was the first area developed. Tanoan West right now, the average list price is $922,000. Tanoan East right now, the newer area, is $830,000. So it's opposite of what we would think right now, but it's skewed because in Tanoan West right now, there's one property listed for $2.9 million, which is not normal for Tanoan West.
Got it. So it's skewing the average. Right.
There's only one in pending sale right now in Tanoan West, and it happens to be $1.1 million. So the average in pending right now in Tanoan West is $1.1 million. The pending in Tanoan East right now is $784,000. When we come to closed,
and that's really the comparison, right? Is what things sold for,
right? Sort of. So Tanoan West, the average sold price for the past year, $636,000. Tanoan East, average sales price for the past year, $795,000. So $160,000 more than Tanoan West. But what you and I know is Tanoan West has some smaller homes that Tanoan East doesn't have. So there are some homes that are smaller and more affordable, which made the average price lower. So when you look at price per square foot, it's almost equal. Tanoan West, 231 a square foot was the average of all the sold properties. Tanoan East was 237 per square foot. So not very different, both in the 230s range for price per square foot. The lowest sale price in Tanoan West was $420,000 in the last year. The lowest price in Tanoan East was $525,000. So there you can see there's just bigger homes in Tanoan East. It doesn't seem to be that skewed by the older part of it.
Yeah.
There's nice homes in both, and a lot of the ones in Tanoan West, having shown Tanoan West plenty of times, many of them are updated and as nice or nicer than Tanoan East. And, Tanoan East, some people say, I really want to be in Tanoan East because I want to be close to the clubhouse and the swimming pool and the golf, the restaurant and all of those things.
Tennis courts, pickleball courts.
Yeah. And then people in Tanoan West have golf carts a lot of times, and they just zip under that Eubank Bridge to get up to those facilities, or they ride on the road.
Well, it's a very, very popular neighborhood in our Albuquerque area. A high desire, for people that want to be in there. It's such a high desirable area. Evidence of that is the neighborhood that's Pulte's building there up by Hoffmantown. And, these are not exactly cheap homes, and they're in a very desirable area. A lot of people want to be in that part of town. So
Yep.
prices are definitely being pushed up there.
Well, I
And
was just going to say that I want to clarify too, so our listeners, I'm sure they all know where Tanoan is, right? Northeast Heights, gated community with guard gated. So it's actual people manning the gate. But what's interesting is there's a homeowners association there, and a lot of people assume it's going to be a very high homeowners association. I think it's typically under 170 a month, and it's, common areas and guard gated. But that does not include the clubhouse and the pool and the golf and all that. That's a separate membership that you have to get on the waiting list, as I understand it, to join the club. So just to finish that topic.
yeah. Okay. No, I think it's good. It's one of those, premier neighborhoods in the Albuquerque area, and it's good to talk about it. But last week we were talking about high prices, and the Albuquerque area is seeing a peak in prices. I was talking about some Zillow data and those estimates, and there was a comment on our YouTube, and I appreciate it. If you're listening, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's that, Zillow does know what I said something last week that Zillow doesn't know what homes sold for. No, Zillow does know. Zillow knows every
Sale
price, what homes are listed for and what homes sell for. They don't publish it publicly, but they do know. They have that data when they're using it in their algorithms to come up with a estimated home value.
So a few years ago, Tego, we used to say Zillow doesn't know what homes are selling for in New Mexico. We're a non-disclosure state. And there are about 5 states that are non-disclosure state. The sale price is not public record. However, what Zillow has done is they have realtors now in our multiple listing service. So they get that data because they now are members of the boards of our board.
Yeah.
To be clear of how that changed.
Exactly. All right, Tracy, I want to jump to the Realtor Commission lawsuit settlement. I don't want to go into the backstory too much because there's too much to unwrap there, and there's a lot going on. But if you've been paying attention to real estate and real estate news, you'll know that there was a big lawsuit regarding the National Association of Realtors, and the National Association has this big settlement. And along with that are rule changes and practice changes that relate to how we do real estate as realtors, and how we interact with buyers and sellers.
And that's not final yet. There's still...
It's final. I
mean, there's still a date in July where they have to finalize it, and there's a date where it's getting implemented. So
yeah, I guess my point is there's people saying, oh, it could still change. No, that what the rules are going to be is pretty much set. I think people need to understand as a seller and a buyer how they can deal with this. So as a seller, the main thing that's going to change for you as a seller is when, at least for now, and this is going to change in August here in Albuquerque, when you list your property for sale, we as a brokerage charge a fee to do that, right? We get paid to do it, and we get paid once it sells, right? We do all this work up front, we do all this stuff to get it sold, and then we take a fee. Well, the way that has normally worked is the seller, through the listing broker, would offer some sort of compensation to the buyer broker that helps the buyer. And that was the hang up, and that's why the lawsuit was a problem, and that's what actually triggered the lawsuit. Is why are sellers having to pay for the buyer broker fee? Well, what's going to happen is the seller is no longer going to be able to offer a compensation to the buyer broker in the multiple listing service. The seller can still offer it. They just can't offer it in the multiple listing service.
As in, we can't publicly put it, not publicly, we can't put it in that multiple listing service, which we call the MLS. It won't be just visible there. When I go to show a house, I won't know automatically how much that seller is willing to compensate a buyer broker.
Correct. Exactly. And so what sellers need to think about is, do they want to offer something? Do they want to offer, let's call it a buyer concession, right? Do they want to offer something to encourage a buyer to come and see their home? Think of it as more of a marketing strategy. It's like, okay, I'm listing my home for sale. I'm gonna pay you, listing broker, whatever the number is, right? A percentage or a dollar amount, whatever it is, it's all negotiable. And then do I want to offer something to a buyer to use for their closing costs? Not the buyer broker. We're just talking about, something the buyer broker. So that's one thing sellers have to talk about. And that's something you need to consult your realtor with when you're getting ready to sell your property.
And I just want to clarify, when you say it's all negotiable, as in from realtor to realtor to realtor or licensed real estate
Right.
broker, each person gets to set their own.
Right.
It doesn't mean that everything I'm going to do is negotiable.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, we all get to set our fees, whatever our fees are. There's
Right.
no
National
mandatory.
yeah.
No. There's no set fees or anything like that. In fact, that's strictly prohibited within our organization, right? You can't set fees. Now, and have a lot of people tried different ways and different practices and different fee models? Absolutely. It's been tried and tried and tried. So yes, I mean, the commissions have been negotiable.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
it's person to person deciding what they want to charge. There isn't a national, this is what we charge as realtors.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Just to be clear.
So buyers, this is where it's changing substantially. So when right now, if you're a buyer, you're looking to buy a house, you connect with a realtor through whatever it is. And generally you do a little consultation, you talk about what you're looking for, and you start maybe looking at properties online. And at some point you decide, okay, I want to go look at some houses. I want to go inside the house and look at it. Right. And there's no requirement to have any type of agreement in place to go look at a home.
Unlike when we work with a home seller, we have to have a written agreement to represent their house.
Correct. There was no requirement that there was some sort of agreement between a buyer broker who's taking care of the buyer and the buyer, right? Well, that's changing. And that's the thing that's changing the most, is that going forward, if you're going to be buying a house, working with a realtor, you're going to need to do a couple of things. One, establish that relationship and establish what that fee that the buyer broker is going to charge you, the buyer, to help them purchase a home. And that has to be done in writing prior to looking at any homes. There's a lot to unpack there, but the short of it is, if you're buying a house, you're going to have to sign an agreement. You're going to have to agree on how much you're going to pay the buyer broker. And you have to do that before you look at homes.
I thought the compensation part was separate from agreeing to look at homes.
No, you have to agree on what the compensation is up front. That was part of the settlement because the lawsuit alleged that there was price fixing, right? Which, I don't want to go down that road, and if it's true or not, doesn't matter, right? This is where we are now. The thing is that now the buyer gets to negotiate what the fee they're willing to pay their buyer broker prior to going and looking at homes. It's not going to be that whole just call up a broker one day and say, hey, I want to go start looking at homes. You have to establish a written agreement between you, the buyer, and the buyer broker before you start looking at homes. Now, the exception to that would be open houses. You don't have to have that agreement just to go look at an open house, because the agent that's there, or the broker, I should say, we're not agents in New Mexico generally. The broker that's at that open house is representing the seller. So they can show it to you, but they don't represent you, the buyer, to come through and look at the house. This is going to go into effect August 1st in the Albuquerque area, and there's going to be a lot of confusion. I'm out there actually teaching this class. I'm one of the ones out there training and talking about this so that the professionals understand it. It's a very drastic change on how we've done business. Just be aware of it. And if you know anybody that's buying or selling, make sure they're talking with their realtor about this and how it impacts their buying and selling.
Okay, to just add insight from showing a lot of homes on my side,
how many homes do you think you've shown over the years?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we've sold thousands of houses as a team.
Yeah.
So just this year, I've shown a lot of houses.
Yeah.
So to be clear for the people who want to go buy a house, and just to kind of clarify, so you and I sit down, you want to buy a house, we agree we're going to work together, we agree how much I'm going to get paid. And then when I'm going to go show a house, I'm going to be calling the other realtor and saying, is the seller offering any concession for the buyer, so that the buyer can choose how to use that concession money, which could be for paying their buyer broker.
Yeah. So that's
It's just making it a little bit more confusing.
let's close that loop because, okay, so now you as the buyer, you're saying, okay, I'll pay you blank, whatever, a percentage or a dollar amount, whatever, to help me buy a house. But I don't have any money as a buyer. I'm like going, well, I've got enough for my down payment, maybe a little bit for closing costs, but that's it. Now it's up to the buyer broker to try to negotiate that fee as part of the purchase of the property, right? So there's a lot of extra negotiations that are going to be happening that didn't necessarily happen in the past. So having a realtor that's got good negotiating skills is going to be more important now than ever, because that's part of the deal. Is like, okay, if I'm a buyer, I don't have the money to really get representation, but I really want representation. Now that broker is going to have to try to get that figured into the deal as part of the agreement.
So it's going to, right now it's nice because we already have that. It's already set aside. We know what's being offered.
Right.
And it's going to be, like you said, a negotiation now. So in addition to the complexities of negotiating an offer for your buyer, we also have to be negotiating perhaps the concessions for them to be able to compensate to have representation.
And let's define concessions, because we've thrown that term out a couple of times. Concessions is when a seller says, I will pay X amount toward the buyer's closing costs. And that could be anything from rate buy down for your interest. It could be inspections. It could be a lot of things. There's limits on how much a seller can contribute to the buyer's closing costs.
Based on types of loans.
Based on types of loans. And one of those fees could be the buyer broker's fee as well, their professional fee. So anyway, that's one of the just to understand when we're talking about concessions, what that means.
So in my mind, Tego, sorry, I'm going to go here. So in my mind, there's this big lawsuit and all it's doing is harming the public. In my opinion, it's making it much harder for home buyers.
In my humble opinion, the only people that have won in this settlement, this class act, it was a class action lawsuit and a settlement. Class was brought by home sellers, right? So there's a whole bunch of home sellers that are part of the class. They're going to get a few bucks out of this thing. It's $418 million is a settlement. Most of that money is going to go to the lawyers for that class.
So you're saying it's the lawyers who won?
Yeah, the lawyers won. The lawyers are the big winners.
Yeah.
Now, we can debate if the business practices needed to change anyway, and maybe they did, but the settlement itself really was a big win for lawyers. And the biggest thing I'm concerned about, especially here in New Mexico, where we're not the richest state in the country, let's just be honest, is that buyers are going to not have representation. The buyers are going to go it alone, and they can do that. They can go directly to the listing broker of the property and work directly with that listing broker and go totally unrepresented.
But the listing broker doesn't represent them, doesn't help them. The listing broker still has an obligation to get the most and the best deal for the seller.
For the seller. Right. They don't have to advise them on inspections. They don't have to advise them on
contracts.
They don't have to help them, through the whole process. And what did I say? There's like 12 different contingencies in a purchase agreement. There's 48 different dates and deadlines that have to be kept track of. And if you miss some of those dates or deadlines, you're in default of contract. I mean, there's so many things that if you don't do this every day, it can really be a problem for you as a buyer.
Right. So buyers are going to be the losers, really.
Well, let's finish that. So they could be in the sense that if you're let's say, tight on a budget, first-time home buyer, and you don't know the process at all, but you really don't have money to compensate your buyer broker, Do you want to buy a house? You go directly to an open house and say, I want this house. And the listing agent says, okay, do you want me to represent you? Which they could do.
And they could ask for a fee.
And they would ask for a fee, or they may or may not, right? That, again, it's negotiable. But now they're working for both sides, right? It is allowed in New Mexico. Many states it's not allowed. You can't represent both sides of the transaction, but it is allowed here. So anyway, or the buyer could go, well, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. Now the buyer is they're on their own, and they could do that, but they're on their own.
So we know, Tego, probably, I don't know, we should have done the stats on this, and I'm sure next week you'll have them, but what percentage of people are using like an FHA, first-time home buyer loan in New Mexico? I just closed one this morning. FHA borrower was on the other side. I was representing the seller, but it was a down payment assistance loan. And an FHA loan means that they only put 3.5% down, right? And we know probably 50% of the people we work with or more are cash strapped. We're getting them in a home with no down payment or limited down payment and just enough money to get their closing costs paid and their down payment.
You know, I have a stat for this.
I didn't know you could pull it up that quickly.
Look at that.
But
I know. I mean,
I knew you could find it.
I know. So I'll give you the quarter one of 2024 in Albuquerque. 60% were conventional loans of all the homes that sold. Okay. And that's about the same as 2023 as well. 15% were FHA loans. So 15% of all the homes that sold in the first quarter of 24 were FHA loans. So that was a 3.5% down, first-time home buyer.
Not necessarily first-time home buyer.
You're right. But owner-occupied. No investment purchases.
Right.
And then we have cash sale. It was about 15%, which is right in line with historic.
So we have 10% more that's unaccounted for.
Yep. And then about 8% were VA loans. And then the rest were like seller financing or trade, creative financing stuff, another 2%.
So less than I would have guessed, because we must be getting all those first-time home buyers through our office and helping people become first-time buyers, because I feel like, we're doing awesome.
It's so satisfying.
It is. I'm thankful for it. And we love to help people with their dreams of home ownership. So, but those people are the ones that are going to have the hardest time.
Right.
You know, and in New Mexico, we know even the conventional loans doesn't mean that they put 20% down. There are 3%, 5% conventional loans also. We had one this week where they were FHA, first-time home buyer. They switched to conventional first-time home buyer. So they're still getting down payment assistance, but there was a better rate because their credit score qualified them for it.
There's a lot of different programs out there. I think we've talked about that obviously in weeks past, but there's different programs, and sometimes it's a conventional program, sometimes an FHA program, but that's kind of getting off track for a little bit.
So just thinking about it, Tego, come August or even sooner, if we start implementing things, before we go show somebody who can't afford to pay a buyer broker, but really knows the value of having somebody in their corner, not just for negotiating the contract, but all the details of the contract and helping them. It's almost like I'm going to need to call every listing broker before I show a house to find out if the seller is offering concessions.
Well, let me give you an alternate.
Okay.
What if you go look at homes and that's the one for the buyer, and you make an offer and you write it into the agreement and you negotiate it, and either works or it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's possible. It sounds very frustrating for a buyer to fall in love with a house though, and then go, I can't do this. They won't help with me getting in that house, which has been the customary way forever.
So let me just say this to that statement. Welcome to the new reality of real estate, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be very different. So I said something at the top of the show, and I wanted to hit on it because I thought it was interesting. We went and visited with a home builder here in Albuquerque.
Las Ventanas Homes.
Scott Ashcraft. And something he's been working on, and I don't know if this is public or not. Well, it's public now. He's been working on a division where they build the Casita, or the ADUs as they're called in
The
Albuquerque.
accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, so that's the 500 or 750 square foot extra house on your property, which, last year we did a lot of talking about it, where the city of Albuquerque now allows that on R1 zoned properties with setback. I mean, there's requirements, there's a whole thing. But he's now built it out and has a price.
He has a price and he has 2 floor plans pre-approved.
Yep.
Ready to go. And he's building one.
Yep.
And has a model.
Yep.
And knows what it costs to build them.
Yeah. So they're out there. Let's be honest, they're going to be $175,000 to $200,000. And it really just depends. A lot of it's going to have the cost of utilities, and getting the utilities there is a big deal. But still, it's just, by the time you build it, it's going to be in that price range.
Well, the thing about it is, if it has bathrooms, kitchen, things that are expensive, it's going to need heating and cooling and roof. All those things are expensive.
Right.
The square footage isn't as expensive. So he was saying, 500 or 750 square feet, you might as well go bigger, because you've already got all the big expensive things taken care of. That extra square footage isn't as expensive.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's interesting because,
Well, and I think there is a market for it. There's not a lot of them that have happened so far, is my understanding. In Albuquerque, it hasn't been the big boom that a lot of people expected. But it is an option for people that want that extra housing unit on their property. And,
totally is.
And, maybe it could be a rental. Check with your HOA and your CC&Rs. It could be for your family, friends, or whatever. So it is an option for people. And there's now somebody out there ready to get going on it and build them for you if you're interested. So,
So give us a call, 448-8888. We're Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker. We love coming to you every Saturday on the Kiva. Also, we're on YouTube and Facebook and all those things. Feel free to follow.
Yeah.
What's the word?
Well, subscribe on YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube.
And follow on Facebook. And
I feel old.
I know. And like or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing, because I talked about it at the beginning of the show, and we got into the whole settlement thing and never brought it up. But predicting the future of home prices, I've got a new data set that I've just put on our website that shows what the prices are of homes that are pending in our market right now. Now we can kind of see what it looks like home prices are going to be a month or two out. And so I'm going to start tracking that as well. And I will tell you that I do suspect that June home prices to maybe be flat median wise, but I do suspect price per square foot is also going to be, again, at a new all-time high over May that we just had. So prices still ticking up, although sales are moderate. I mean, it's not going gangbusters, but there's still 200-300 homes a week that are going under contract. So still activity out there.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.